to time. Here in the United States, we have not yet switched time, but I understand that most of you fine folks in Europe have switched to not daylight savings time, switched off of daylight savings time. I think that's how it works. So I am, yeah, it's slightly different timing here for everybody. But I'm excited to talk about our topic today, and I also have a very special announcement to make as well. So I guess while people are filtering in, I know it always takes a couple minutes for people to come in. How about we open with this? I am really curious. Let me pull up the chat here. I am curious. How many of you have watched the Lord of the Rings series? So why don't you pop that into the chat as you're listening? Hey, Makita, welcome. Come on in. How many have you watched? And I guess we could tack on a second question as far as what is your favorite part of that? So that's and when I say the Lord of the Rings, I also kind of, I guess, I don't know if it's fair to lump in The Hobbit, but I would definitely say that was my favorite of the two. I really liked the acting in especially The Hobbit. That was was just, it's so well done. And I would say definitely or my favorite, unfortunately, is at the end. You know, when they come back, and it's kind of the bittersweet of losing their king, but also of being able to have gotten rid of Smaug. Hey, Rudolph, good to see you. Come on in, my friend. Welcome. All right, so the question I asked everybody, in fact, I could pop this up on the screen. Let's see here. We'll add this in. You watched. All right, here we go. We'll add this in here, and it's alphabetical order. There we go. So feel free to answer that question while we get started. Today's topic is checkout. And, you know, as I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, checkout is kind of the land of Mordor. For those of you who have not watched that series or read the book, it's, or books, very, very big books. I'll give you a brief rundown. Oh, nice, Vesh, I like that. So the Lord of the Rings is I think people would put it in the fantasy category, and it goes through this story of, well, actually, The Hobbit is one, and The Lord of the Rings is a separate one. I think there's a couple others. Those are the two I'm familiar with. It basically lives in this more or less fictional fantasy land. I don't know the correct words for some of that stuff. And the first one goes, and they want to reclaim this mountain. These hobbits, which are basically like short people, and with big ears and big feet, and they want to go reclaim this mountain. And then in the second one, again, it's all the same geographical setting, which I think is really cool. Kind of ties it together nicely. In the second one, there's this ring that they have that has these special powers, and they need to get rid of it. But they basically need to get rid of it in Mordor, which is the land of this being that wants the ring back. So it's kind of like the worst place to go have to get rid of it. So anyways, that's kind of the very, very, very basic rundown. There's lots of information on Wikipedia or some other websites about this. So the idea is the land of Mordor is, you really want to stay out of that at all costs. I mean, you do not want to have anything to do with this if there's any way possible. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because I think it kind of applies to checkout. Let's jump forward well, actually, I'm just going to start it now, and then I'll talk about our special announcement here in a little bit. The basic idea is the land of Mordor has what we need. We are kind of terrified to travel there. As you see in The Lord of the Rings, they are terrified to go there. We know that our journey is going to be met with peril and challenge, pain, and there's always that constant idea that we're going to be hit with the complete defeat over us. Unless we're Gollum, which is another character in the story, and I won't talk too much about him, because if you haven't read of that, or have seen that, that's definitely an interesting twist to the story. We must place our feet very carefully. And I love this because this analogy, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but The idea is that the checkout is the choke point for making money for a merchant. So it's like one of the most incredible, one of the most important aspects of a website. The whole purchase journey is checkout, which is kind of the most complex, the most difficult part of that. You're going to be hearing some puns as we go through this here today. So get this one. I like this one a lot. My friends and I did a Lord of the Rings marathon yesterday. I ran 26 miles dressed up as Gandalf. That was pretty good, I thought. All right, so we're going to break this into 3 different sections here today, or excuse me, 4 different components here today. How to configure a component, how to customize components, how to get data from other components, and how to push data back up. 4 different segments, and I think it's going to unlock the mysteries of this land of Mordor, i.e. checkout, so that you can have a good handle as far as what does it take. And I think we can nail this in the next half an hour to 45 minutes to give you a really good understanding of how to customize the checkout. All right, so jumping in here. The one place in Middle Earth we do not want to see any closer, and the one place we're trying to get to, it's just where we can't get. Again, very similar to this checkout. Like, we don't want to touch it. I know many developers who have said they do not touch the checkout. If you want to customize, well, we're going to install the one-step checkout, and that's it. Like, we're not going to touch it. But I don't think that has to be the end of the story for us. It doesn't have to be. We can get there and we can get out of there and deliver a good product in the process. So let's look at some of these light bulb moments that have been helpful for me, and I hope that they will be helpful for you as well. The first one here is actually relatively simple. You have to deal with it. Unfortunately, and I say this unfortunately, there's a lot of people, there's a good number of developers who just don't know how to manage the checkout, how to work with the checkout. And and a lot of this is because it feels like we're fighting it. But instead, if we learn to work with the checkout, learn what the checkout expects from us, we'll be able to we will be able to facilitate a really good checkout experience and work through these problems ourselves. So I know that sounds bad to say, but yeah, we have to deal with it. Here is the first, well, that was, I guess, kind of the first one, but here is really the first light bulb moment for me, and that I think makes a big difference in our understanding here. Checkout and UI components are XML. So checkout and UI component XML is basically just a facade. And and what I find this to be a light bulb moment is we look at this XML, whether it's in the form of layout XML, or whether we look at it the UI component XML, like on the admin side, and we're like, how does this work? Like, this seems so ridiculously complex. Now, let me take you down here to the default. I'm pulling this up here. Checkout index.xml. Wrong one. That's weird. Looks like I kind of lost my 1 second here. There it is. That is weird. My Stream Deck seems to have gone kaput. I use a Stream Deck. Let's see here. Weird. Let's see here. Let's switch this here. Okay. Yep, I've had some issues with my Stream Deck here recently. So there we go. Problem solved. All right, so here is the checkout index. And actually, this is a great, oopsie, it's supposed to be me in corner. There we go. And I need to select display capture. Great. It doesn't allow the cropping. Well, so we'll just do this one. All right, so sorry, you cannot see me. Oh, well. So this is actually a really good example. We have our Magento checkout block 1 page. We have our template here, and then we have our JS layout. So this JS layout is kind of a somewhat magical, but honestly, there's really nothing special about it. So if we look at this template here, we can see here it says block get JS layout. We open this up and we have our layout processors. So basically what's happening is it's taking everything that we have listed here in right in this whole list right here. This is just like an array. This is all that it is, an array. It serializes it and it pushes it into this basically a JSON list right here. Nothing special about it. That's literally all that it does. So the magic, though, does happen here in this one file right here. Get.js layout. We have our layout processors, and we're going to run that through the layout processor. So all that to say, there is nothing special about this configuration. What ends up happening, and I'm going to show you this in great detail later, is all of this is literally passed to JavaScript objects like the UI component system, and objects are initialized that match each one of these component names. So the name component here is magic. We see our component right here. That is magic, yes. However, there's nothing past that that's special. This literally becomes a config object inside of this form input component. That's all that it is to there. Nothing past that. So all that to say, checkout is a facade. The UI component XML is a facade. I mean, it basically is designed to sugarcoat or make it syntactic sugar to make it easier for you to change what's in the checkout. That's all. And I'm really serious. That's all that it takes. So another thing is don't use checkout config. As we look in here at our page, one second here. I had an idea. Okay. There we go. And we can do this, and I'll go back to my Stream Deck. And we'll change the computer over to me and corner my slide name there. Yeah, okay. There's a great fix. Okay. So, I just lost my slides in that process. Congratulations. There we go. Nice. Okay. So, I'm going to jump through this breakpoint here. All right. So we can, right here. Okay. So, we scroll through here. We see that there is checkout fig, not that one. All right, window.checkout config. And we see there's a lot of information that's put out in this file. This is ultimately rendered in one page. We have our, this is our UI component information. And then here's our checkout config as well. So, but they're kind of come from the same place. We have our serialized checkout config, this get checkout config. We have our get config provider. And there's a whole bunch of config providers here. And this honestly seems like the natural place to put it. There are a couple of reasons why not to do this. Back to our slides. Checkout config is globally accessible. Thus, anything can write into it. Now, on the surface, that doesn't seem like a huge problem. But as we dive into it, this means that checkout config is not, generally speaking, reactive. So it can be actually difficult to watch for changes being made in this process. The whole idea behind how the checkout has been written is reactivity and the ability for information to simply flow through the system as opposed to basically kind of like object passed by reference. And we're going to talk about this more later. And so understanding this concept is one of the biggest keys to unlocking the idea of checkout, which then starts precluding this checkout config object. We quickly see that that's really not a good solution overall. So do not use checkout config unless just don't use checkout config. Generally, unless you're like modifying something existing, perhaps might be a good reason to, but otherwise don't do that. Okay, so let's talk about another thing that causes a little bit of confusion, and that is this. We have our shipping email here, our shipping email class. I'm going to make this module available, so don't have to worry about trying to copy code down. I've already built this module, and I'm not going to deny that the fact that checkout always is challenging, but once you understand these concepts that I'm talking to you about, checkout is much less challenging. So hope you get it from that perspective. So we have these different perspectives here. We have the the squiggly braces and the backtick. So basically, the squiggly braces is equal to just ES6 nomenclature. So it's basically something that's executable within this format. And then we have, and of course, Magento does it to keep things backwards compatible. Then we have the $dot, which is equal to this. I should have put a dot after this. So as we see in our example here in the code, we have we're going to execute, we're going to fetch this the object with this reference here. So this dot visibility source, and I'll show you how this all ties together. And then it's being fetched. Here is the location it's being fetched from, and then we're getting the value property from that. So at the end of the day, this seems complex, unintuitive. Yeah, it's not. It's really not that bad. So basically, that's one of the other things that unlocked my understanding there. The registry, and this stuff will make a very big difference for you as you work through this. And here we go. Okay. The registry, you will see a lot of instances where, as I pull this up here, here we go, slides. All right. So you're going to see a lot of instances like in training materials where you can go call require UI registry get. That works great. Like that's been a really big lifesaver. We can go fetch a specific component path. However, there's a couple of missing links in this. The first thing is, well, what path do you look for? Okay, well, that one's probably the biggest. So you'll see more training that says, should actually make this a little bit bigger. Here. All right. So registry get, you can do search for index is equal to, well, in this case, telephone, as I already have here visible. All right. Index is telephone. Fantastic. Did you know that there could be multiple UI components with the name of telephone? And that's what has caused me a lot of problems in the past. I built this around the index as telephone. So ultimately, then I can go into here. We'll make this a little bigger. Yeah, so we go into here and we say, we have our index, which is, we see that's basically what we're searching for here. We have our parent name and our name right here. So I can fetch this same one by copying that out and go. Piece of, well, kind of piece of cake. That was fairly simple. We now get access to the same UI class. Awesome. And I literally can throw that into my layout XML and fetch whatever I want. However, there is a problem because there could be multiple telephones with this. And that was actually the problem I faced. One of the problems I faced when building out a module. We're going to talk about what this module is. When we are, how do I say this? When building out this module, I was tuning it to watch for what country was selected. So I wanted this selection, this field selection. We're going to talk about what this module is here in a second. I wanted this field selection to this module to be only visible if a specific country was selected. So I started out by searching for, and we could actually just go through this experiment right here, like this. Index equals checkout. Bingo, done. Okay. So, all right, I got this. Fantastic. Well, then I built it around this, never looking to check the name of this. And that kind of is important to check if you're really, want to take things seriously, which is I know you are, as I try to myself. So checkout steps, billing step, payment, payments list, freeform. Okay, well, this is totally not the right one. Well, how would we get the right one? Well, take a look at the slides here. So we have our, we can fetch a list here like this. So we're going to come up to and do filter, and we can now filter for a specific value. So we'll do index checkout. Not checkout. What am I doing here? Index is telephone or country. Probably about the same 6. Nope, not that one. I think I got that one incorrect. The telephone's the same here. So is it country ID? Oh, great. I have to satisfy this here. Yeah, country D. Okay, so yeah, we have 6. Basically, we have 6 in the checkout here. We have 6. Oh, did I not? Was I not showing you there? There we go. Sorry about that. We literally have 6 um, address forms in the checkout. 6. Now, if you're wanting to add a new field to the address, you have to do it in 6 places. FYI. Um, maybe you don't, because there is another concept about that. We'll see if we have time to talk about that. So, at the end of the day, there are 6 places this could be referenced, and if we're wanting to target to make this field or whatever customizations we are working with dependent on a specific address form, then we need to find that right one, of course. So the filter, I have literally never seen other people talking about this, and I feel like it's really important to share it with you here. So make sure you write down this syntax here. Filter is very, very important. Use that as much as possible. While we're talking about this, I would like to throw out the comment about the art of e-commerce debugging. I just got a comment here this week about how helpful there was somebody that was found it to be, and it was of great help in their career. So just keep that in mind as you are looking to go forward. For individual developers, this is incredibly valuable for you. You will be more valuable to your team. Ultimately, it's kind of an interesting paradox for agencies, I will say, because as your developers become more proficient or able to solve problems faster, that does mean your billable hours will go down. So buying this book will potentially hurt your billable hours, but in the long run, it's a good move to make because nobody likes to spend a lot of time fixing bugs. All that to say, let's move on. The project. And if you followed me, you already have probably seen aspects of this project. We've done some explainer videos about this, and this is the how to create a like a shipping email function. So I'm going to select my state here, and we can give you a quick demo of what this looks like. So I select my state here, and based off of the state, I have an additional email for tracking numbers, and I can add multiple in here. So Joseph plus test at swiftauto.com. All right. So it's programmer art. I understand at this point, but this is the basic. Oopsie. We have some validation going on here. This is the basic idea of this process. So we see it's contingent on a selection here. So Uruguay does not have this option, although we still do see a hello. And I'd put this in here. We're going to talk about reactivity. And I put this in here as a quick demonstration. You see, I just typed in Joseph and it says hello, Joseph down here. So pretty simple there. But the idea is that we can upload set specific email addresses, and then shipment confirmations will go to each one of those individual email addresses. This is a legit requirement that we have built out for one of our customers. So at the end of the day, I feel like this is a fairly practical process here. So again, like I said at the beginning, I have divided this out into 4 different categories, and let's review these categories and then jump in here. First, we're going to talk about how to configure a component like this, how to customize components, how to get data from other components, and how to push data back up. So step number 1. This one is a little bit interesting because it's not just a static setup. We have a UI component that spawns other UI components. So this is kind of the parent UI component, and then each one of these text boxes is a separate child UI component. And so it adds a layer of complexity that I hope will be helpful in our understanding of how this all works. One of the biggest challenges is actually looking at how things relate together. So I'm going to show you this here, and then we're going to dive into the code, and we're going to kind of switch back and forth. So I basically kind of like an annotated version of the code versus not. One thing here, let's see here. Valashev, maybe? Is that how you pronounce your name? I apologize if not. The other YouTube link was not working. So I'm going to take a quick break here and let's see here. Interesting. Well, we have a problem with our YouTube link. All right. Well, looks like thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Matt, for getting that dealt with. That's always frustrating when that happens. I am sorry about that. Okay, so let's keep going on this. So for those of you that missed it, I talked about some really good stuff here earlier. So make sure you do get back in there and take a look at those some of the things that unlocked my understanding. All right, so let's jump back over here. I want to talk about a couple of these values here, and then we're going to take a look at the code. So this is my excerpt from checkout index. So this is our checkout index layout handle, and we have before shipping method form. So basically, it's just a matter of going through, figuring out, where do we want to throw this? Like we can literally scroll through this, and yes, it's a massive Christmas tree. Yes, it seems overwhelming, completely non-understandable sometimes, but sometimes we can probably figure it out. So, for example, we come here, see shipping address field set. Well, if I want this to be before that, well, I see before shipping method form. So it's not entirely obtuse. We have address list, additional addresses. These are kind of like regions that you can throw children into. Wait, that didn't sound right. You would never want to throw a child around. Okay. Throw objects into. That would sound better. So, what I like to do in some of these cases, well, in this case, and I feel it takes a little extra time, but ultimately I feel like it's worth it in the long run. I literally copy the entire file, and then I go through and I collapse and I delete out these values that I don't want, because ultimately, if I don't get the structure right, I'm kind of screwed to begin with. So, and then I'm going to waste a whole bunch of time trying to get the structure right. So if I take the structure and just delete out the sections I don't want, at the end of the day, it's going to work a little better. And I honestly have not had structure related problems since I have started implementing this practice. So here is the file that it's a beauty. I mean, folks, ladies and gentlemen, this is not really a beauty. It looks like a piece of garbage. I mean, really, if we were to face it, it would fail most every code review. And I don't know this, but whatever. This is what has to happen. Like, I'm not aware of a way to clean this up. And wait till you see the PHP version of this. That's even worse. So we have our before shipping method form. We have our children object in here, and we are inserting a new item here. This component is magical. It definitely is. But literally everything else that we're passing into it is just setting values on an object, a JavaScript object. That's all that's happening. And I want to drive that home. What I believe has happened so much with UI components is it looks like it's some type of magical system. And at the end of the day, I'm here to prove this right now. There's no magic to it. In fact, that's maybe if I could even use this word beauty of it, it's hard to say UI components are beautiful. They're not. They're ugly. They're ridiculously ugly. But there's a silver lining behind every cloud. Well, behind a good number of clouds, especially when the sun's out. And I think this is one of them. It's simple. It's ridiculously simple once you kind of peel back these layers and begin looking at what's actually involved under the covers here. So let's take a look back at our slides. And we have our, let me double check here. Okay. So this is our UI component layout here. I want to make a couple call outs here. We have our original component. This is the one we're embedding it inside. Here is the item name, which ultimately is mapped out to the index. Now, do you remember me talking about index previously? I'm sure you do. So it is literally mapped out to index. We have our JavaScript object. This is what the type of object that is being loaded. And these are key values that are being set in there. Watch this. Watch this. So hopefully you see how this kind of works together, but let me put onto the screen something a little bit different. We have our component type, which ultimately this entire object, this UI class, is the initialized version of this component path. Okay, so ignore countries for right now. We'll talk about countries here in a little bit. Remember the index we talked about? This is the name of the component. We'll just jump back and forth here. Our index right here, the shipping email, that is found right here. We have our renderer details found right here. Guess where they're found? Renderer details right here. We have our template. Template is listed right here. We can just go back and forth. These values are all explicitly found right here. I hope that makes sense, because we're not talking about anything lofty or grandiose here. I mean, literally, this is initializing JavaScript objects. And once you get your mind around that, the whole system, all the complexity starts crumbling apart pretty quick. Now, there's a couple other things we'll talk about here in this process, that I think will make those walls fall down even faster and literally give you a underground route straight through Mordor to the mountain. So yeah, this is going to be this is the good stuff here, folks. All right. So let me. Okay. So once we have, let me go back to our slides. Once we have our this again, the layout tree as we saw earlier is literally converted into an array. That's all that happens, and the values that we specify in this array are used to populate the object. So if we need to change to set to pre-populate a value, like in our example here, a list of email addresses like such, we can pre-populate those. We don't have to use checkout config. All we have to do is add these to our UI component. You say, well, Joseph, that's not possible because you can't change values in layout XML. Duh, yeah, you're right. 100%. Screw it. I totally blew it there. But actually, I'm going to show you how to do that. And I think you already know the answer on this. I'll show you that in here in a second. Let's talk quickly about UI component initialization. And I'm going to show you how this works. So I'm going to we're going to open this up. I'm going to set a breakpoint in init observable. We're going to jump back up the stack and see how this works. So let's come over here into sources. Drop that down a little bit. All right. Init observable. Bingo. Right here. Let's refresh our page. Nice. Oopsie. Let's see here. Front page. Oh, I think I must have hit something. Keyboard combination. And yes, I did. Try again, Joseph. Sometimes this is Yash. You had a question. Is this a PowerPoint slide? I'm not quite fully following you on this one. So I think it was about a previous thing I stated. So maybe if you could give me a little more context again, that would be helpful. All right. Here we go. Now, so call stack, as I'm sure you use all the time, is very helpful, very important. So this is our element that we inherit. We see these different values here, and init observable, module, stateful, links, and unique. Init links is also very helpful, as we're going to talk about here in a little bit for understanding how stuff works. I have init observables to be able to fire up these observables or reactive properties. Oh, yeah. So Yash, this UI component injection here, this was a slide that I built here. I'll show you too again. So, and I'll talk a little bit while you're looking at that slide. So this is where we set up our observables. Pretty simple, pretty easy, not much to it. But I find this as a easy way to hook in, if we want, as we see request modifiers, we'll talk about that later, et cetera. So it's a great way, just a good place to put initialization information into this process. So with that, we have our UI component almost initialized, but I want to take a quick look at this class. And just as I was showing you earlier, we have our component here and all the information. So we have our emails being pre-populated, I believe. And yeah, as I showed you earlier, this is all this information. Now we can step back through the call stack, and we can see right here, I believe, is we have the UI component arguments, initial apply. Let's see, not that one. It was I think it was here that the values are actually created, that or they're passed actually to this object. So all that to say, it's pretty simple, folks. It is pretty simple, and I don't say that in a unkind way at all. Like, oh, you should already know this. No, it's taken me a long time to figure some of these basics out. And once you do, it's just going to totally unlock your understanding, which makes me really excited. And to be frank, for me, it's hard to sit down and to dedicate the time necessary to get some of this stuff cracked. But that's what I'm hopeful this ninja training here does that just for you if you haven't already had the opportunity to do this. Okay, very good. So that was how to configure a component. Now let's move on how to customize components. This is going to be pretty short because The possibilities are endless, but the route is pretty easy. So let's go ahead and refresh this page. And I do have a PHP example on how to do this. Okay, so if we back up here, it's always good to back up. We have our layout processors here. This is literally DI dependency injection here. We have our layout processors, which should be a list of composite. No. Let's see here. Layout processors. Here we go. Layout processor interface. There we go. We have our layout processor interface. We have one method on here. We have a whole bunch of layout processors. Well, I guess a good portion of those are interceptors. Feel free to look through these. These are great inspiration. Yeah, nothing too spectacular about them, but I did include one myself. So we see our our DI.xml file here. Actually, I threw it in front end. Layout processors, shipping email insertion. So the idea here is when somebody goes to this checkout page, if they have already, say, for example, added their email address in here, well, then it should automatically be populated for this new order. Or, I mean, you could make it dependent on the address, or there's a lot of ways to do this. Although I guess if it was dependent on the address, it would be better to put this in the address area as opposed to the shipping email. So this would be technically per quote or per customer, ideally. So how do we figure out this stupid long tree? Now, I did some looking, and there was a tool that allowed us to be able to swap these values out much easier. For the life of me, I can't find it. So